Welcome to the Bakerloo line on the London Underground. In this video we're going to take a look at the 1972 Mark II tube stock which runs on this line. The 1972 Mark I stock was originally constructed in the early 70s to replace the aging 1938 stock running on the Bakerloo line at the time. These 7-car trains were based on 1967 Victoria Line trains to make construction quicker and easier, with the Mark IIs later ordered to run on the Northern Line. It wasn't until 1987 that all the Mark II stock was running on the Bakerloo line, as new 1983 stock trains were delivered to the Jubilee line following a stock reshuffle. When operating on the overground section of the Bakerloo line between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone, these trains have the Network Rail TOPS classification of Class 499/2 units. Let me show you everything you need to drive the 1972 Mark II tube stock on the Bakerloo line. Start by opening the closest passenger door to the cab and entering the cabin. Door controls are clearly visible and the controls are displayed on screen. To get the unit started, there is a panel in the rear corner of the cab next to the driver's seat. Find the control switch at the bottom of this panel. Insert the control key into the control switch and then turn it on. Before we head off, you need to prepare the unit's lights, destination blind, and other driver comforts such as blinds and heaters. As with all trains, you should always operate with the headlights on. Cab and saloon lighting controls can also be found here, along with an additional audible warning valve reset button. Having already picked your destination when you started the scenario, change the destination blind to your destination of choice by turning the destination blind handle. The destination displayed on the outside of the cab is the same as the scrolling in-cab screen. If you can't remember or want to double-check your train destination, you can call up the overlay screen with your keyboard or controller. A blind can be pulled down if it gets too bright on the overground sections of the line. Driver comfort controls are located on the panel just behind the driver's seat. These include cab lights, cab temperature controls, and cab fan speed. The windows can also be lowered on both sides of the cab for particularly hot days. However, to ensure driver's safety, the train will not move unless the drop light interlock is engaged while the window is open. There is one for each window on either side of the cab. This panel is also the location for the traction test button. Now we're sitting down in the driver's seat, let's go over these controls and get this unit moving. The wiper control button is located on the bottom of the column to the left of the main controls. A good portion of the route is outside and British weather is notoriously rainy, so you may need this from time to time. Should you need the whistle, the two-tone whistle switch is just below the direction selector on the main control panel. The direction selector determines the direction of travel. First insert the key and then move it to the Enter position. To prime the brakes, set the traction brake control to Emergency. This will make a distinctive hissing sound. Now set the traction brake control to Off and Release. Then press the audible warning valve. And finally, move the traction brake control to Rio 1 Hold. Move the direction selector to your desired direction of travel. As this unit has a cab at either end, this is most commonly in the forward position. Later, we'll cover what you need to do if you want to reverse the unit. Now we're all set. We're ready to move off and pick up some passengers. This unit has a combined throttle and brake handle. Apply power to the train by moving the traction brake control to shunt, being mindful not to apply too much power in lower speed restriction areas. If you want to pick up more speed, move the traction brake control to series and then to parallel. The acceleration and brake on the 1972 stock are very responsive, so bear this in mind. Once the train is in motion and you have reached your desired speed, set the throttle control to Off and Release, and this allows the unit to coast at its current speed. And we're on the move. To slow the train down or bring it to a halt, move the combined traction brake control to Rio 1 Hold. To apply a stronger brake force, there are 3 additional levels: Rio 2 EP Min, Rio 2 Normal, and Rio 2 EP Max. Apply whatever amount of brake pressure you feel the given situation requires. Because of the sensitivity of the brakes, I recommend you get some practice in applying the right level of pressure. You're going to be stopping regularly, so getting the hang of this is a good idea. To activate the emergency brake, move the combined traction brake control to Emergency. If you push the combined traction brake control beyond the Rio EP2 max setting, it switches the train to an alternative form of braking as a backup for if the EP brakes fail. Until you get used to this, try not to push beyond the Rio EP2 max setting, as these brakes apply much more slowly and you'll find you get less brakes, not more. If you're in a real bind, there is also the emergency stop on the far right of the cab. Once you've reached your destination safely, you'll want to get your passengers on and off as quickly as possible so you can stay on time. The door controls are located on the left and right of the main control panel. Additionally, left and right door control buttons are located on the panels to the rear left and right of the cab. Now we've covered the basics, let's go over some of the more complex controls that allow you to really immerse yourself in the driving experience of the 1972 stock. The column to the left of the driver's seat has some interesting controls. You can use the rate switch during adverse weather conditions or if there are leaves on the line to reduce the amount of power to the wheels and try and prevent them from slipping. Rate 2 is for normal running. If you're driving and finding the motors aren't putting out the level of power you expect, wait until the train is stationary, then hit the overload relay trip and test button. This will trip out and disengage all of the motors and the train will not move at this point. Then simply hit the overload relay and MG set button to reset the motors and regain control. If you press the MG trip button when the cabin lights are on, it will turn them off and replace them with the automatic battery-powered emergency lights. Hit the overload relay and MG set button to test this. On the other side of the cab, there is a plethora of safety and test buttons. Firstly, we have the run-back protection buttons. This is designed to automatically work when the train brake control is put into off and release when the train is on an incline. If it rolls back more than a meter, the system stops the train from moving any further by applying the brakes. With these buttons you can disengage, reset and test the system. A brake test switch is also located here. When stationary, if you wish to complete a brake test, first turn this switch on, then move the emergency brake handle to active. It's located just in front of you on the main control panel. Once the lights on the test board have gone amber, move the emergency brake back to stop and they should go green and complete the brake test. On the column itself, the speed control cut in and out switch and tripcock reset buttons can be found. These are used by drivers who have passed a danger signal and want to be able to move safely at a slow speed. The reverse lockout switch is also here. Reversing the unit is impossible without first changing this switch, and in reality requires prior authorization from management. Here we have a handful of other driver and passenger comfort buttons, the cab space heater and knee space heaters. We also have some cutout switches for the control governor, EP brake and the compressor. The door enable override button allows the driver to open the doors if the train has gone too far along the platform or not far enough. Door interlock button allows you to move the train with the doors open, and the drop light interlock right works the same as the one for the other window, allowing the train to move while the window is open. Finally, we have the traction control cutout switch, which is used to isolate the motors on the leading carriage. This quick guide to the 1972 Mark II stock should give you everything you need to enjoy your driving experience on this busy commuter unit.